It's my first time straddling a giant banana. I guess it's fun, in a weird way. I know you guys are gonna put like music behind it and put in slow motion. What am I doing?
What's going on YouTube? I'm BB Funerology, and this is my take on why Big Brother 22 sucked. Big Brother All-Stars 1 and 2 spoilers ahead, don't say I didn't warn you. And if you like this video, consider hitting that subscribe button because I'm making a whole lot of Big Brother content just like it. Now before I dive too far in, I want to state that I've seen a sentiment online between Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, wherever, that Big Brother 22 is the worst season of all time. I know this isn't everyone's opinion, but it is some people's opinions, and I just want to say, I personally don't agree with this, but I can see where people are coming from. For me, it's a low tier season, but it did have some redeeming qualities. I'll get to those later on in the video. And for me personally, I like to see people strategizing and navigating their way through a fluid game. The season was obviously not very dynamic. Cody basically won the first HOH and seemed to have complete control the entire way through. There was a brief period where it looked like Tyler might be able to take over, but it didn't last long because Tyler completely self-destructed, allowing Cody to resume control of the season. And as for drama, I mean, did the season really have any? So let's talk about the elephant in the room, because I already know a lot of people are thinking it. Pre-gaming. With all the returning seasons, you're always going to have pre-gaming, whether it's relationships that have been built for years, or it's just a bunch of people texting a couple months before the show starts when they all start getting calls from production. It's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about it, and there's nothing production can do about it. Now the real question is, do I really think it changed the game? Yes and no. So let me explain. I think in the first couple of weeks it was probably huge and had a pretty big impact, especially based on who wins power and who they have and haven't talked to. But let's remember one thing, just like the actual game,
This is the Big Brother house. You get bounce checks.
also not only that, but if you make alliances in the pregame, you have to be a game bot to stick to them all the way through. If you're an emotional player to any slight degree, which I'd argue most players probably are, then if you don't jive with the person you made a deal with, you're not going to want to stick with them. So now that I've gotten my potentially hot take out of the way, let's talk about something more analytical. Competitions. So I took a look at the competitions for each season, and I only counted competitions that actually gave power in the house, so HOH and vetoes, and for Big Brother 22, the safety suites as well. I didn't count any food or luxury competitions. And what I did was, I put every competition into one of 5 categories. Physical, so not every player can win this type. Mental, players with good short-term memory or spatial awareness, or people who have studied the days will probably have an edge here. Skill, a particular skill set will help you with these. Determination, so whoever wants to win it the most should be able to win. Or random, which is truly random and anyone has equal chance to win. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Some competitions are more than one of these categories. BB Comics, for instance, is a competition where you zipline, aka physical, and you have to find the differences between 2 similar pictures, so mental. I chose physical for this competition because you have to zipline and run across the backyard like 10 or more times, and I did something like this for every competition. So let's look at the competition breakdown, and you can see right away the physical competitions went way up, which allows a specific type of people to win way more often, or should I say, a specific committee of people to win. And the random competitions went way down, and the determination competitions are non-existent in Big Brother 22. And honestly, I think if this trend continues, I think the best strategy right now for future house guests, grab all the most athletic people and make an alliance with them, and you'll win every competition. Seriously, look how athletic the committee was, or grateful, or level 6. On the topic of competitions, can we talk about how god-awful that first episode was? I excused it at the time because the hype train was full steam ahead, but who thought watching a ball puzzle live 4 times in a row would make good TV? Also, that part of the competition seemed painfully awkward in the fact that all the men had such an easier version by having the room so close to the start of the puzzle. Then in part 2, production doesn't realize they need to reset the platforms for each player. Did they even playtest this competition? It felt like they just handed this one to Cody. So in Big Brother 7, there were 4 different competitions across the 12 weeks where you had to do some form of eliminating people from the competitions. This allows the house guests to see where they all stand and get an understanding of each other's pecking orders. This type of competition favors the majority because they can gang up on the minority of the house, so I'm not saying we need it all the time, but I think an average of one of these competitions every 3 weeks is a pretty good balance. Now compare this to Big Brother 22, there was only one competition of this type, 2, I guess, if you count night moves being one of these types, because of the nature of how you gang up on the competition. But let's be real, at the Final Four, it's already too late to use a competition to show where the lines are drawn. The house guests don't have any time to react and do something about it. So I think a lack of elimination style didn't help either. Now let's talk about the twists. The safety suite, I actually really like that one, and I'm going to save that for later because I'm going to end the video on a more positive note. The BB basement powers were meh. Christmas literally never used her power. Danny made it so weird with her power by not using it on herself. Although David's disruptor power...
No, I ain't got no power. Did you say?
Oh.
Did you say? What's up? Did you?
No, I did. Come on, bro.
Did you say?
It was me, David. I used the disruptor power on you. Let's talk about the neighbor power. I love Dr. Will. I'll be the first to say he's the greatest of all time. And I know, Dan's the whole theme of my channel. He's my number 2, but comparing them is a whole other video on its own. Dr. Will as the neighbor kinda sucked. He said like 5 words to the house guests, and he spoiled the triple. I know that wasn't Will's choice, it was the producers obviously, but why? Why? Seriously, why? Imagine if the house guests didn't have any clue the triple was coming. That would have been the best reveal ever. Then the triple itself, the house guests see the triple on the wall behind Julie. Seriously, come on. That was amateur hour at its peak. Now look at the Big Brother 7 twists. There was the coup d'etat. It was basically a flop twist because Boogie never even used it. And they introduced house guest choice to the veto picks, which was a really good addition considering the 6-finger plan happened 2 seasons ago. Hear me out. When it comes to twists, less is more. Seriously, Big Brother 10, a universally praised season, had no twists. So keep it simple, guys. Also, throwing a bunch of random powers in and hoping something works out is kind of boring, most don't land, and usually they're wildly imbalanced. And speaking of balance, cast balance. The problem with Big Brother 22, there weren't enough threatening players. So let's look at the Big Brother 7 house and the threatening players coming in. You had Will, Boogie, Janelle, James, Kaser, Danielle Reyes, Allison, Diane, Nokomis. A large majority of this cast was very threatening. Now look at Big Brother 22. You had Tyler and Janelle, maybe Nicole and Ian too for winning. Everyone else was a sidekick. Sure, Cody's a good player now, but before this season he was the guy who made one of the worst moves in Big Brother history. Memphis was the guy who got 7-0'd by Dan. Christmas gave up the final 3, and Danny couldn't stick with a successful alliance if she didn't like him. Too many low-level threats allowed for people to just slide on through the game. I do very much appreciate the 50% POC push that CBS is promising us going forward. That is a step in the right direction. But it's not the only step needed. If they continue to cast stereotype cookie-cutter characters and expect different results, they're insane. Stop the Instagram model casting, diversify not only in color, but in age and in backgrounds too. Also get more fans who are ready to play the game and play it hard. Then there's the game meta, or the best strategy. In Big Brother 7, the meta was to get a team, roll with that team as best as you could against everyone else. In Season 6 versus everyone else, with Chilltown riding the middle, it made for a great us versus them mentality from the Season 6 perspective. In Big Brother 22, the meta was to convince everyone you can, to the best of your ability, that you're on their side. Do everything you can in your power not to shake things up because you're in the big alliance and you'll be able to work it to the end game. Obviously, that only works for one person. Yet, everyone still went along with it regardless. I think part of the reason why this meta worked so well in this season is unfortunately because of social media. Now hear me out. Back in 2006, social media wasn't really a thing. MySpace hadn't even peaked yet, and Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram were babies at best. So the house guests and the original All-Stars knew that this was their 15 minutes of fame, so they had to make use of it and make big spectacle moments. Then, over in 2020, social media influencers are a thing. Lots of people are worried about damaging their image or their brand, and it feels like a lot of them are walking on eggshells at times. But more importantly, as returners, these guys have come out of the house and seen the evils of the internet, the insults, and the crazy threats. Guys, stop doing this. It's okay to criticize someone's game, but don't try to get them fired or threaten them in real life. That's not cool. My last point here is luck. Even luck was against us this season. But if Janelle just got one more point, or Kaser pulled out a second round win in that ball rolling comp, who knows how this season would have turned out. So like I said, I want to end this video on a more positive note and focus on some of the seldom good parts of the season. COVID. Thank you, production, for actually making this season happen during a global pandemic. Things were tough in 2020, so the fact that they made it through this whole season without a COVID slip-up is commendable. I'll always take Big Brother over no Big Brother, even at its worst. The house design. This house was beautiful. The inside was really cool. I love that they paid homage to the greats. And Julie's stage was beautiful. Seriously, I love how the whole house was a TV at this point. Really sleek stuff. Night 1 feeds. Having feeds night 1 was really awesome. I really like this and would love for it to return in the future. Turning on the feeds night 1 and watching things unfold was a breath of fresh air. Compare that to turning on the feeds a week later and having to play detective to piece the puzzle together. It was a very cool change. The safety suite. Usually I'm pretty critical of modern Big Brother twists and ideas. It does feel like in recent history, twists have been either big flops or they make the house dynamic for the worse. Remember in Big Brother 21 when Jack and Jackson wanted to blow up Grateful, but they didn't want to target Nick until after Camp Comeback ended? Yeah, me too. But the safety suite was actually really good. It wasn't too overpowered. It was before the nominations, which made it so the HOH didn't have to nominate a bunch of people, and it basically prevented a week 1 Janelle or Kaser boot, so this was a lot of fun. I only wish Kaser and Janelle better coordinated so only one of them used it week 1, and I think potentially this twist could have gone a step further. What if after 3 weeks they revealed that the safety suite continues for 3 more weeks, everyone gets a reset and they can play again, and this time there's no +1 because there are less people in the house? Just a thought. The finale. One of my biggest gripes with modern Big Brother is the finale format. Seriously, I will never stop beating this drum, but the finale is straight up broken. And I think we'd see a few different winners in recent history if it wasn't for the finale format. Also recently, it seems like the final 2 have less and less time to talk about their games, but this year was different. It felt like everyone had room to breathe. Nobody was cutting off during any questions, which is key. This made it so much more digestible. Then cut to Cody cutting Nicole.
Cody, you have been my ride or die since hour 1, day 1 in this house. If I was in your position, I would not cut you.
It's so hard. I mean, I feel like I played this game from the second we walked in here with the both of you. I had that same thing with him. And so, although it was such a blessing to have the both of you in this final 2, this is horrible, like, to do this to one of you guys, but Nicole, I'm so sorry.
My God, did this scene have emotion. This was the most emotion we saw all season long. And at this point in the season, I was in the camp of, the season is bad, so the finale will be bad. But partway into this scene, I thought, wait, this is actually really great and making for an awesome finale. So producers, for future finales, if you're not going to change it to a non-live format, make sure it's like this one with plenty of room for the final 2 to talk. So that's why I thought Big Brother 22 sucked. Were there any reasons you thought I should have included? Let me know down in the comment section below. And be sure to subscribe because I'm making a whole lot of Big Brother content just like it. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
From outside the new Big Brother house, I'm Julie Chen Moonves. Be safe, be well, and be good to one another. Good night.